Hey everyone, I have a product to look at today from our sponsor TEMU, and what they've given me is a retro handheld that you can take with you that has thousands of games pre-installed. The best thing about this handheld is that it comes in under $30. I have a link in the description. If you're a first-time user, you can actually get a $100 coupon bundle. Here's a look on the page. So if you follow the link in the description, it'll take you to this right here, the SF2000 Gamepad Portable Handheld Video Game Console. It's a mouthful, but it really is a good product. I mean, I really do enjoy it, and I've had a good time with it so far. Now, you have color options. I picked the Super Nintendo one because, that's my childhood. But if you prefer other colors, they are on there. And those are all the listed consoles that are supported. So, of course, FC is regular Nintendo. The SFC is Super Nintendo. Then you got Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. The Sega Mega Drive, they called it overseas, but it was the Sega Genesis in the US. And then we have MAME, which is your arcade emulator. So, yeah, go on there and pick whichever one you like. Again, I picked the Super Nintendo because I just like that color scheme. It's nostalgic for me, but it may not be for you. But right here in this picture, you'll see what's included in the box, and it's a great deal. Use my link and go pick that up, and then of course use my code INC15199 to save an extra 30% at checkout. Let's take a look at our little handheld here. So they have decided to use the form factor of a Super Nintendo controller with the same button layout, with the exception of this additional analog stick right here, which I primarily only used in MAME, but you could use it for any of them if you want that, instead of the directional pad. But buttons are clicky. On the back, you have the two speakers, so when you're holding it, it's actually like redirecting the sound back at you. Works pretty well. You do have a rechargeable battery here that is inside of the unit, and that is recharged with an included USB-C cable. You have your SD card slot here on the bottom, which is already preloaded with the software and the ROMs. And you have an AV out, which you have an AV out cable as well, if you wanted to play it on an external monitor. Let's take a look at the interface. So we have MAME, that pops up first thing. 204 games. Of course, MAME is a multi-arcade emulator. Then you have your NES or Famicom. You have Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. Now, those are the only systems that are supported on this handheld. But look at the game amount. If you were looking while I was scrolling through, you have 204 arcade games, 868 regular Nintendo or Famicom, 1,167 Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, 912 Mega Drive or Sega Genesis, 1,142 Game Boy titles. That's crazy. 1,102 Game Boy Color titles, and then 762 Game Boy Advance titles. So essentially you have full ROM sets for most of these, and they play pretty well. So let's just open up a couple of this and see. Now, just to give you an example of the volume, it's very loud. But, we don't want any copyright strikes. So anything that may copyright strike us, we're going to turn it down. All right, let's get this thing started. Here we go. Keep in mind, all right, I am not an expert on Metal Slug, but I have definitely played it. And this is one of those arcade or Neo Geo classics, man. I mean, this was it back in the day. Oh yeah, Mr. Driller. If you haven't played Mr. Driller before, do yourself a favor and play Mr. Driller. I think this recently came out on the first PlayStation, I believe, but clearly there's other versions of it. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but man, this game, you can waste so much time in, and I love it. After having the unit for a couple days, I've spent some time with it. I've actually taken it to work with me twice, and then I've just sat around the house and played it. It works really well. Now, I had a couple occasions where a game would start to play really slowly. I would load it up and it would definitely not be playing full speed. And at first I thought that maybe there was, just that ROM was not compatible. But actually, if you go back and just go push start and select, get back to the main menu, just reload the ROM, the game runs just fine. There were a couple of Game Boy Advance games that didn't quite run at full speed, like the racing games. But overall, the device is really good. And for the amount of games that you get, I mean, thousands of games for under $30 on a device that's rechargeable with USB-C and has an optional video out. I mean, it's a pretty solid deal. Use the link in my description. Of course, that helps me out, right? It is an affiliate link. But if you're a first-time user, you get that coupon bundle and you save more money. Pretty solid for under $30.